Hey everybody, my name is Chris Tharp, and today we're going to get to know Blender a little better. If you didn't already watch my last video, Blender is one of the 5 free programs that I really recommend. You can get it at blender.org. And once you download it, you'll pop it open. You're probably going to have a newer version than this. I think 2.83 is out now, or about to come out. No bigs, it doesn't matter. We're going over basic functions. This is from purely a beginner standpoint. Whenever you start out, you're always going to have a default cube in your default scene, a camera, and a light. It's just to give you a good idea of different things you can work with. We're going to go over your views and moving around, so really basic stuff. If you click in your center mouse wheel, it allows you to orientate your view, and the position of that actually depends on the object that you're focused on. So if I focus over on this light here, and I zoomed into it by clicking the period on the numpad, or it might be the home button on a different keyboard, but for me it's the period. That allows you to orientate, and then if you hold shift and click and drag the center wheel, it allows you to pan your view, and then scrolling will zoom in and out. So that's pretty much all movement right there, handled with just a couple little things. Another pretty nifty feature is you're able to lock to certain views. I like to do this with the numpad, so you get 3 for a right view, 1 for a front view, 7 for top, and then you can also switch between orthographic and perspective view. And that can be pretty helpful, especially for spacing things out, or if you're working specifically in 2D, or not specifically in 2D, but something for 2D, which is what I've been using Blender for lately. Alright, another thing to go over is basic object manipulation. So we have our default cube selected here, and if we just hit G, it'll allow us to move that cube around. We can place it back wherever we want, just by clicking in the left mouse. And again, if you wanted to reorientate your position, your view, you just click in the period in the numpad, back to your cube. Also, you can hit R to rotate that, and S to scale. Now all these functions are also over in this toolbar here. Scale, rotate, move. But I feel like the keyboard shortcuts are just where it's at. Also, you can do all of these things on specific axes. So you can hit scale, or S for scale, and then you could scale it maybe just on the Z axis, or maybe just on the Y axis. And you would do that by pressing Z or Y. And you can right click to cancel any action that you're doing, and if you wanted to complete that action, you could just left click. So we have that there. Alright, a couple other quick things. Let's look at object editing. So up here, these are our different modes. We're just going to mess with object mode and edit mode. I'm going to click edit mode, and you can also hit tab to toggle between that. This allows us to affect the shape. So we can affect it via the vertices, the lines, or the faces. And those all have different functions depending on what you're wanting to do. But most beginner modelers are going to work with the faces. So just for fun, we can left click and select an individual face of this cube, and that allows us to do all the same things we could normally do with the cube as a whole, but with only this section. So we can rotate it, and even rotate it on specific axes. scale it, and same thing. Or we could move it. And just for fun, I didn't really plan this out much, if that's not obvious. I'm going to scale it like, or rotate it like that. Alright, let's go over a couple more objects that you're able to bring in. If you hold Shift A, it'll pop up a menu here, and we go over to Mesh, and we have more primitive shapes we can work with. This cube right here is just like our default cube, so identical. But we also have a couple other things to work with. Just for fun, we'll put an isosphere and UV sphere. Alright, we have a couple basic shapes right there, and if you have an object selected, you can right click on it and actually change the shading mode. Excuse me. So something like this, if you wanted it to appear smoother, you could right click on it and hit shade smooth. And you can see you could do the same thing with this one here, but it has less faces, so it's going to appear more jagged and edged like that. Just do flat shading on that for now. And you can do the same thing with all these objects. I'm hitting tab to go into edit mode. We have face select option there. And just start selecting faces and do whatever you want with them. Another good thing there is you can you can hit B. It'll give you a marquee selection. And then I believe you also can hit C and it'll give you a brush selection. So you can just paint whatever face selection you want, and then you can edit those individually. Another fun thing you can do is extrude objects. So I'm holding Shift now and then selecting faces, which just allows you to select multiple faces. And then I'm going to hit E, and that allows us to extrude those faces, inward or outward. And then you can also manipulate those like you could anything else. Alright, another thing we want to look into real quick is materials. I'm going to do a really basic overview of this. Essentially, if you go right over here, this allows you to affect your objects in all sorts of different ways. But we're going to be paying attention to this one right here. So you can essentially have your object selected over here. It'll give you all your information on the material. You can change the base color, whatever you want. And that's not showing up, probably because of our view mode. So I'm going to hit Z to pop up view mode, and we have solid selected. So I'm just going to select rendered, and it'll give us that proper material there. And you can do this not just with whole objects, but just like we were editing individual faces before, you can do this with faces as well. So you can select just the face of an object, hit new material. We're actually going to add 2, so the cube has a material as a whole, and then this face, we'll add new material. We'll just make that red for fun. And then we can hit assign with that face selected. And once we hit tab to toggle back into object mode, you're able to see that we've colorized just that face. So you could easily make a Rubik's Cube or something like that. A couple other quick things are modifiers. They can be kind of fun. This guy, for example, we go over here, select our modifier tab, select add modifier, and we can add a subdivision surface to smooth it out even further. We can do the same thing to this one. And something kind of cool with this is you see the actual faces. Because we left it in flat shaded mode, you can still see how the faces become more. So you can actually apply this modifier and then go back and apply another one on top of it, and you'll see the amount of faces multiply. And you can do this a few times before your computer starts getting upset with you. See, if we go into edit mode, it's got a very different design. And just for fun, we'll go ahead and apply different material to this. Why not? Oh, another fun thing with the editing, if you select a piece of your object and go to move it by itself, it will move just that. If you hit O, also there's a toggle up here, it will turn on proportional editing, which allows you to affect more of the object. See, I'm hitting G to move that vertice, and it stretches it up. You can also use the scroll wheel to affect how much of the object, affect the area that covers. So, hit tab to get out of that. Alright, just for fun, I'm going to throw down a ground plane. And we're going to scale it up. Move this guy up above here. I did that just by hitting G to move it, and then Z to focus in on the Z axis. Now we're going to talk a quick little bit about lights and rendering. Just separating these out so you can see how the shadows are going to look and work. Our default light is a point light, and these are pretty good for most local light sources. The tab's right over here, and you can change the coloration of the light, like so. The power of the light, and for a point light it's pretty high, so it's not going to make much of a difference if I just scroll it around. And then you're also able to affect the shadows and the way that they work. You got a couple different types of light. You also have a sunlight, also known as a directional light. And because we just transferred that point light into a sun, it's all crazy and bright like that. It's because of the power right there. So if we just hit Shift A to add an object, and then we can go down to lights and sun. There it is with a more reasonable strength of 1. And you can manipulate that in the same way, so you can rotate it on whatever axes you like. I'm going to hit X to delete that object. And I'm going to look at the other light types real quick. We also have a spotlight, which is pretty self-explanatory. Allows you to focus in on things. And then we have an area light. These things are really handy. Change that back to a point light, and then just for fun, we'll take that and we'll make it red. And we'll move it right over here by our red-topped cube. Perfect. Now we can hold Shift and then D to duplicate that. Now we have a second light source. We can move that right over here. And we'll make that blue. Maybe change it to an area light. That's a little better, I guess. And then we'll duplicate this one again. That's Shift D. I'm just having a little bit of fun with the lighting overall. We can make that one green. Now we have some nice colorful shadows, some fun. We could even, if we wanted to, toss in another cube. That was Shift A, and then I selected Mesh Cube. And scale it up like so. And we got walls. Alright, one last thing to go over, just for the basics. If you hit 0 on your numpad, it's going to take you to the camera view. This is your frame right here, so it's showing you exactly what's in frame, and you're able to see what's out of frame, just for reference. It helps a lot whenever you're moving around and things get complex. Now, even while you're in camera mode, you can hit G to move it around, or R to rotate. And you can also specify the axes like you could with anything else. So I'm just going to stick it in the corner, rotate it on the Z axis. And something like that. Anyway, that just allows you to get a little bit of a frame and get an idea of what your camera's doing. So I'm going to hit 0 to go back to camera, and we're going to look at rendering real fast. Over here is your renderer properties, and it allows you to affect a whole bunch of things. Just for fun, we're going to turn on bloom, and maybe pop up the intensity just a little bit. Ooh, I forgot about this. Another cool thing is within your materials, you're able to actually manipulate the reflective properties and emissive properties. So if we go back over to our material tab, we give this guy a new material. We can, under the surface tab here, click that. And you have quite a few to choose from. Just for fun, I'm going to select glossy. See, that gives it a nice shine. And you're able to manipulate the roughness and smoothness of the object, and also the coloration, of course. Alright, I'm going to hit 0 to go back to the camera there. And I'm going to scooch, just for presentation, this to the side a little bit. And grab these guys. Something like that. Nope. There we go. I'm just switching around the positions of the objects. We'll go back to rendered mode. I still don't particularly like that, but whatever. If you go over, let's see, right here to your output properties, you're able to affect the resolution of your image and the format of your image. And then you can also hit F12 to render a single image preview of what you're looking at. And if you wanted to render the entirety of the animation, in this case down here you see your timeline, that would be 1 to 250 frames. Then you would hit, I believe it's Control F12. Yep, right there. And I think that's about all we're going to do today. I hope that helped. If it did, shoot me a like, a thumbs up. I really appreciate any comments. Anything you think I did wrong or you'd like to see in the next video, I'd appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. See you next time.